I looked up from my desk to see Jason Wheeler standing in my doorway, his expensive suit doing nothing to hide that smug look on his face. You know, the safety meeting I was supposed to attend with Steelworks Defense? Yeah, that got canceled about 10 minutes earlier. Now I understood why. Every file, every contact, every manufacturing protocol. All of it, he said, stepping into my office like he owned the place, which honestly, he did now. Look, my name's Michael Thompson. I'm 48 years old, and I'd been with Titan Industrial Solutions for 12 years. Before that, 18 years as an Army engineer. I mean, I'd built something here from nothing. Relationships with defense contractors, manufacturing plants, logistics companies. People who trusted me because I understood their business from the ground up, not from some MBA textbook. I kept my face neutral as I stood up. 12 years of building partnerships with companies that kept America running flashed through my mind. Late nights on factory floors, weekend calls when production lines went down, flying to plants in the middle of nowhere when safety issues needed fixing. I'd generated over $16 million in revenue from relationships I'd earned through sweat and competence. Of course, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I pulled open my filing cabinet. Steelworks Defense, Industrial Dynamics, Patriot Manufacturing. You know what? The weight of those folders felt like holding pieces of my life. Jason watched with barely hidden impatience. Didn't even try to hide his satisfaction. This was personal for him, and we both knew it. I don't understand, I said, placing the stack on my desk. These companies have worked with me since... They're company clients, Michael, not your clients. Jason's tone was sharp as a blade. The executive team has decided to consolidate manufacturing consulting under regional management. I just stared at him. This man who'd been brought in as CEO 6 months ago to accelerate growth. What he really meant was consolidate under managers from his previous company, guys who'd never set foot on a factory floor, who thought manufacturing was just moving numbers around on spreadsheets. I slid the files toward him but kept my hand on top. You might want to review these contracts before making any decisions. These companies have specific requirements for... Your approach is outdated, Michael. He yanked the files from under my fingers. We need scalable solutions, not this hand-holding approach you've been using. Clear out your personal items by end of day. HR will escort you out at 5. As he turned to leave, he paused. Oh, and don't get any ideas about contacting these companies directly. Your company phone and laptop will be deactivated within the hour, and we've already informed them of the transition. When the door closed, I sat perfectly still, breathing through the anger in my chest. 12 years. 12 years of proving that American manufacturing could compete if you gave companies the right support, the right expertise, the right commitment to quality and safety. Before I continue with what happened next, let me give you some background. Look, I hadn't always been in manufacturing consulting. Those 18 years in the Army, that wasn't just about following orders. As an engineer, I'd worked on everything from logistics systems to equipment manufacturing. I mean, I'd seen what happened when you cut corners, when you went with the cheapest option instead of the best option. People got hurt, missions failed. When I transitioned to civilian life, I brought that mindset with me. Where other consultants saw cost-cutting opportunities, I saw safety risks and quality issues. My files weren't just full of process improvements and efficiency metrics. They contained relationships built on trust, on delivering what I promised, on understanding that manufacturing isn't just about margins. It's about keeping American workers employed and keeping American defense capabilities strong. Jason had arrived as CEO 6 months earlier, brought in from a larger firm with a reputation for aggressive cost reduction. His specialty was identifying underperforming assets and either fixing them or eliminating them. From day one, I could see he didn't get our business model. Your client retention rate is impressive, he'd said in our first meeting, but your profit margins per client are 18% below industry standard. That's because I don't cut corners on safety audits, I explained. And I don't recommend outsourcing critical manufacturing to overseas facilities just to save money. He'd looked at me like I'd suggested we conduct business meetings in Chinese. The global market doesn't care about your patriotic sentiments, Michael. It cares about results. But my results? They spoke for themselves. 0 safety violations across all my client sites. 98% client retention rate. Referrals from my companies accounted for 35%. Titan's new business last year. The chairman of the board had personally commended me at the company Christmas party. None of that mattered to Jason, who saw my methods as inefficient obstacles to his vision of streamlined operations and offshore partnerships. As I packed my personal items, Photos from plant openings, a flag from my army unit, thank you plaques from grateful clients. My phone buzzed. Text from Linda Hayes, our HR director. Jason just canceled all your client meetings for next 2 weeks. Says you're taking personal leave. What's happening? My hands stopped over the box. They weren't even waiting until tomorrow to start erasing me. I typed back, he's redistributing my accounts. I'm out. 3 dots appeared, then, that's insane. Did the board approve this? Doubt it. Strategic restructuring, apparently. I finished packing, then sat at my computer, less than an hour before my access got cut. Look, I couldn't download client files. That would violate my contract. But there was nothing preventing me from sending myself a simple list. I opened a blank document and started typing from memory. Not proprietary information or trade secrets, just basic details. Every key contact I'd worked with, their roles, their communication preferences, the specific challenges they'd shared with me over the years. You know, the kind of institutional knowledge you can't get from a database but makes all the difference in serving clients effectively. I'd just hit send when my screen went black. They'd moved faster than I expected. Walking out of the building felt surreal. Security didn't stop me. Apparently Jason hadn't bothered with the escort threat. But Linda met me at the elevator. "This is wrong," she whispered, giving me a quick handshake. "Everyone knows it." "It's business," I replied, though the words tasted bitter. "No," she said firmly. "It's ego, and it's going to backfire spectacularly." I didn't know how right she'd be. At home, I cracked a beer and sat on my deck watching the sun set. You know, the shock was wearing off, replaced by something harder to define. Those clients weren't just accounts to me. I knew which plant managers were fighting budget cuts, which companies were struggling with new safety regulations, which defense contractors were behind schedule on critical projects. Jason and his team would find detailed technical reports in those files, thorough analysis, and clear recommendations. What they wouldn't find was why Steve Rodriguez trusted me enough to call at midnight when his production line went down, or why General Miller always requested me specifically for classified defense work. My phone started ringing around 8 p.m. First call from a number I didn't recognize, then another. By 10 that night, I had 23 missed calls, half from unknown numbers, the rest from people at Titan. Jason himself had called 4 times. I turned off the phone and went to bed. Next morning, my email inbox had exploded, subject lines, ranging from urgent call needed to please contact immediately. The one that caught my attention was from Steve Rodriguez, CEO at Steelworks Defense, our largest client. "Michael, heard about the change, extremely concerned. Need to talk ASAP, personal number 5550187. I hesitated. Look, my employment contract had a non-solicitation clause. I couldn't reach out to clients for a year. But there was nothing preventing them from reaching out to me. I called Steve. He answered on the first ring. "What in hell is happening over there?" "Strategic restructuring," I said. Couldn't keep the sarcasm from my voice. "That's not what I'm hearing." Word is Jason's placing his cronies in control of major accounts to set up offshore partnerships. That aligned with my suspicions, but hearing it confirmed sent fresh anger through me. "I can't comment on internal company matters, Steve." "Well, I can comment on our contract. We signed with Titan because of you, Michael. You know our manufacturing requirements inside and out. This morning I got an email introducing some guy named Kevin Foster as our new primary contact. Never heard of him. He's requesting a meeting to review our current strategy." My stomach dropped. Kevin Foster, one of Jason's former colleagues who'd joined 3 months ago. His background was in textile manufacturing, not defense contracting. "I have to work with whoever Titan assigns," I said carefully. "Actually, you don't," Steve replied. "Our contract has a key personnel clause. Section 8.3 specifically names you as essential to the engagement." I nearly dropped the phone. I'd forgotten about that clause, something Titan's previous CEO had agreed to for our top defense contracts. "If you're removed from our account without our written consent," Steve continued, "we can terminate the contract without penalty and pursue damages for disruption of critical defense manufacturing." That hit me hard. Steelworks represented nearly $4.8 million in annual revenue for Titan. "I need to think about this," I said. "It's about to get more complicated," Steve replied. "I've already talked to the guys at Industrial Dynamics and Patriot Manufacturing. They're not happy either." By noon, I'd received calls from executives at 6 different companies. All expressed the same concerns. They'd built working relationships with me, trusted my technical judgment, and were uncomfortable with sudden changes made without consultation. 4 of them had key personnel clauses in their contracts. I spent the afternoon alternating between anxiety and growing vindication. You know what? My phone kept ringing with calls from Titan. The voicemails had reached 47. Around 3 p.m., I got a call from General Joseph Miller, chairman of Titan's board. "Michael," he said when I answered, "thank you for taking my call. We have a situation that requires immediate resolution." "I'm listening," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. There appears to have been a significant operational decision made without proper board oversight regarding key client relationships. His careful military language told me everything about the crisis unfolding at Titan headquarters. "The board was not consulted on the reorganization that Jason implemented yesterday," he continued. "Steelworks Defense has invoked their key personnel clause and given 48-hour notice of contract termination. Industrial Dynamics and Patriot Manufacturing are threatening to follow suit." I stayed quiet, letting the weight settle. "The board has called an emergency session for tomorrow morning. We'd value your input on resolving this situation." My heart was pounding. The power dynamic had shifted completely in 24 hours. "I'll need to consider it," I said. "Please do." "And Michael, many of us believe this situation should never have occurred." After I hung up, I noticed a new email from Jason. Subject: urgent. Misunderstanding needs correction. "Michael, clear miscommunication about yesterday's personnel changes. Need to discuss immediate reinstatement. Available anytime for discussion." I stared at the screen, a slow smile spreading across my face. Jason, who'd dismissed me without a second thought yesterday, was now scrambling to undo the damage. But there was something he didn't know, something that would change everything. Early next morning, a courier delivered an envelope. Inside was a note from General Miller. "Board meeting 9 a.m. Car will pick you up at 8:30 if you're willing to attend. Please confirm." I called and confirmed. At 8:30 sharp, a black sedan pulled up. The driver led me through the underground garage directly to the executive floor, avoiding the main lobby spectacle. Linda was waiting when the elevator opened. 63, she whispered quickly. "What?" 63 missed calls to your personal phone. Jason tried to get IT to remotely access your devices last night. They refused. Said it would be illegal without a court order. My blood went cold. He'd actually tried to hack my personal phone. She glanced around nervously. "The board's already in session. Jason's been pacing the hallway for 30 minutes. As if summoned, Jason appeared around the corner. When he saw me, relief washed over his face, quickly replaced by his practiced business smile. "Michael, thank you for coming." He stepped forward as if to shake hands, then seemed to think better of it. "Just a misunderstanding yesterday. Heat of the moment. I'm sure we can work everything out." "The board is waiting," I said, walking past him. The boardroom fell silent when I entered. 8 people around the massive table, faces tight with concern. Financial reports covered the surface, and a projection screen showed a single red number, minus 12.7%. "Our stock price since market open," General Miller explained, following my gaze. "Word leaked about Steelworks contract termination." I took the indicated seat across from Jason. His confident facade was cracking. "Thank you for coming, Michael," Miller began. "The situation has become critical beyond the 3 clients we discussed. We've received concerned calls from 5 others requesting clarification on account management changes." Jason leaned forward. "Which is why we're prepared to offer immediate reinstatement. Same accounts, same compensation, plus a retention bonus of—" "Jason," Miller cut him off sharply. "We agreed the board would lead this discussion. Before we discuss any resolution," I said, "I'd like to understand what happened. Was this restructuring approved by the board?" Uncomfortable glances around the table before Miller answered. It was not. Jason implemented these changes under claimed operational authority, without board notification or approval. And what exactly was communicated to my clients? Scott Anderson, our general counsel, slid a folder across the table. "Email communications sent yesterday morning." I read the printouts aloud. "As part of our commitment to providing specialized sector expertise, your account will be each hour, managed by a dedicated team with deep industry knowledge." I looked up. This implies I lacked expertise in defense manufacturing and heavy industry. The room stayed silent. I continued reading. "We appreciate Michael's contributions and wish him well in future endeavors. This suggests I left voluntarily. Jason shifted uncomfortably. Standard transition language. It's deliberately misleading, I interrupted. You terminated me without cause, without warning, and without transition planning for clients who specifically contracted for my expertise. You weren't terminated, Jason insisted. Your role was restructured to... The door opened. Anderson's assistant entered with a grim expression and whispered something in his ear. Industrial Dynamics just sent formal notice, Anderson announced. They're invoking their key personnel clause and terminating their contract effective immediately. The room erupted in murmurs. Industrial Dynamics represented another $3.4 million annually. That's 2 of our 4 largest defense contracts gone in 36 hours, Miller said, voice tight with controlled anger. Patriot Manufacturing will make it 3 if we don't resolve this immediately. All eyes turned to me. We're prepared to offer not just reinstatement but promotion, Miller said. Senior VP of Manufacturing Relations reporting directly to the board. Full autonomy over your client relationships and hiring authority for your team. It was more than I'd ever imagined having a week ago. Real authority, protection from Jason's interference, the resources to do the job right. But something had crystallized during those hours alone, fielding calls from clients who'd become more than business relationships. What happens to the people Jason brought in to replace me? I asked. They'll be reassigned to other sectors, Jason answered quickly. Different clients, non-competing areas. So they keep their jobs while I was nearly escorted out by security. Nobody had a good answer for that. I need time. To think, I said finally. We don't have time, Jason snapped. Steelworks CEO is demanding a resolution call this afternoon. If you're not on it, we'll lose the account, I finished. I understand the situation perfectly. The tension was suffocating. Look, these were accomplished people who'd built a respected firm, now watching it crumble because one man's ego had driven him to dismantle something he didn't understand. May I speak candidly? I asked, looking at Miller rather than Jason. He nodded. The issue isn't just who manages these accounts going forward. It's about trust, with clients and employees. These defense contractors trust me because I understand their manufacturing challenges as an engineer, not just a consultant. I know which companies are struggling with new alloy specifications, which ones need help with automated welding systems, which ones are behind on delivery schedules because of supply chain issues. I paused, making eye contact with each board member. Those details aren't in my files because they're not billable hours. They're the foundation of real partnerships. But they're why these companies call me at 10 p.m. when a production crisis threatens a defense deadline instead of waiting until morning. They're why they recommend us to other contractors. They're why our retention rate is double the industry average. The room was completely still. Jason saw that approach as inefficient, as a weakness to be eliminated rather than an asset to be leveraged. He made a decision that betrayed both your client's trust and mine. Jason's face had turned red. This is ridiculous. Business isn't about personal relationships and war stories. It's about delivering measurable results on a scalable model that doesn't depend on one person's connections. His words hung in the air like an indictment. How are those scalable results looking today, Jason? Asked Gary Peterson, the board's senior member. Jason had no response. I need until tomorrow. Until morning, I said, standing. I'll have my decision then. And Steelworks? Miller asked. I'll call Steve Rodriguez. Ask him to give us 24 hours before making final decisions. Relief was visible around the room. Thank you, Michael, Miller said. As I gathered my things, Jason stepped close, voice low. This doesn't have to be adversarial. We both want what's best for the company. I looked into his eyes and saw not malice, but genuine confusion. He truly couldn't understand why his approach had failed so catastrophically. No, Jason. You want what's easiest to measure and control. Those aren't the same things. I left through the main lobby this time, exchanging nods with staff who looked surprised and pleased to see me. Several whispered quick support as I passed. We've missed you. Don't let them railroad you. This place isn't the same without you. By the time I reached the parking garage, my path was clear. At home, I called Steve Rodriguez. They want you back, don't they? He asked without preamble. They've offered me promotion to senior VP. He laughed. Of course they have. Question is, do you want it? I hesitated. I'm not sure yet. Would you hold off on final decisions until tomorrow? Absolutely. Though I should warn you, I've had calls from 3 competitors since we gave notice. Everyone wants Steelworks business. I appreciate the time, Steve. After similar calls to my other key clients, I turned to the messages I'd been avoiding. 9 different consulting firms had reached out, having heard through industry channels that I was suddenly available. 2 were Titan's biggest competitors, offering generous packages clearly designed to capitalize on Titan's crisis. But the message that grabbed my attention was from someone unexpected. Roger Patterson, former client and now CEO of a rapidly growing logistics company. Heard what happened. Their loss, potentially our gain. I've been looking for the right person to head our new manufacturing advisory division. That person is you. Name your terms. No rush. Take the weekend. Roger and I had worked together 4 years ago when he was COO at a different company. I'd helped him solve a critical supply chain crisis, and we'd stayed in touch. I set my phone down, overwhelmed by the options. Return to Titan with real power but the same underlying culture. Join a competitor and bring my clients with me. Accept Roger's offer to build something new. Or maybe there was another path, one I'd been considering since walking out of Titan's offices. I opened my laptop and began writing. When I woke next morning, my decision was crystal clear. I dressed in the same suit I'd worn the day I landed the Steelworks contract 5 years ago. Felt appropriate. At 8 a.m., I called General Miller. "I've made my decision," I said. "I'd like to present it to the board in person." "We're convening at 9, he replied. "I'll send a car." An hour later, I walked back into that boardroom. The atmosphere was even more tense. Jason sat isolated from the others, his expression thunderous. Several board members wouldn't meet his eyes. "Thank you for coming, Michael," Miller began. "Before you share your decision, the board spent considerable time last night discussing recent events. We've reached some preliminary conclusions, but we want to hear your thoughts first." I nodded, taking a breath. "I won't be returning to Titan," I said. Jason's posture relaxed slightly, a hint of satisfaction. "However," I continued, "I'm not joining a competitor either." Now everyone looked puzzled. "I've spent yesterday talking with each client. Long, honest conversations about what they need going forward. What became clear is they don't just want me. They want the approach I represent. The technical expertise combined with personal accountability. The understanding that manufacturing partnerships are built on trust and competence, not just contracts and margins." I opened my laptop and turned it toward the board. "This is a proposal for a new arrangement, one that benefits Titan, preserves client relationships, and creates a sustainable path forward." Miller leaned forward, scanning the document. "A strategic partnership. Exactly. I'm establishing Thompson Manufacturing Partners, an independent advisory practice focused exclusively on relationship management and technical guidance for manufacturing clients. Titan would continue providing the implementation services, data analysis, and specialized capabilities you excel at." "You want to take our clients," Jason said flatly. "I'm proposing a collaborative model where we each do what we do best. You've made clear you want Titan focused on scalable, standardized methodologies. That has value, but it's not what these particular defense contractors need from their primary advisor." Peterson was nodding slowly. "Boutique front end that feeds into our technical capabilities." "Right. Clients get the personalized expertise they need from me while still benefiting from Titan's resources and infrastructure. Titan retains significant revenue without having to manage the high-touch relationship work that Jason finds inefficient." "And you get to build your own business using our client base," Jason said accusingly. "I get to preserve relationships that took 12 years to build and that you were willing to destroy in one afternoon," I countered. "The alternative is these clients leave entirely, which benefits no one." Anderson was reviewing the document with interest. "This is remarkably detailed for something developed overnight." I smiled. "I've had contingency plans for years. Any good engineer does." "You've discussed this with the clients?" Miller asked. "In principle, yes. All expressed strong interest in the hybrid arrangement. Pending board approval, 4 have verbally committed to staying with this model rather than moving to competitors or seeking new representation." The energy shifted as implications sank in. This wasn't just crisis management. It was a new business model that could work for everyone. Everyone except Jason, whose centralized control would disappear. "This is completely unorthodox," Jason objected. creates massive complications for project management, billing structures. All addressed in the proposal, I interrupted calmly. Pages 6 through 9 outline operational framework. Board members exchanged meaningful glances. We'd need time to properly review this, Miller said. Of course. But we have immediate issues. Steelworks, Industrial Dynamics, and Patriot are waiting for resolution. I've bought us until noon today. Miller turned to Anderson. Can we draft interim agreements to stabilize those relationships while we evaluate the full proposal? He nodded. Transitional terms by 11 a.m. This is insanity, Jason erupted. You can't seriously consider letting an employee walk away with our largest clients and then paying him to manage them. Former employee, Peterson corrected coldly. An employee you terminated without board approval, triggering a crisis that's cost us millions in market value. Silence fell. Jason looked around the table, seeing united opposition. Perhaps we should discuss this proposal without Jason present, Miller said carefully, given the apparent conflict of interest. Excuse me? Jason's voice rose. You serve at this board's pleasure, Peterson reminded him. A board scheduled to hold a confidence vote this morning. I felt brief sympathy for Jason as he realized his isolation, but only brief. He'd created this situation through arrogance and refusal to value what he couldn't quantify. I'll step outside to give you privacy, I said, standing. We won't keep you waiting long, Miller replied. In the hallway, Linda was hovering nearby. Well, she whispered, they're discussing it. Jason's not happy. She glanced at the closed door. He's been impossible since yesterday, blaming everyone but himself. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Miller emerged alone. The board has reached unanimous decision, he said. We'd like to move forward with your proposal, with minor adjustments to financial terms. Anderson is drafting interim agreements now. My heart jumped. And Jason? Jason has been placed on immediate administrative leave while the board evaluates his position. Peterson will serve as interim CEO. It was more than I'd hoped for and exactly what Titan needed. I'll call the clients immediately. Miller gripped my arm. Thank you, Michael. Not just for this solution, but for showing us what we nearly lost. Over the next 4 hours, everything moved with military precision. Anderson drafted agreements that all 3 key clients accepted immediately. I called each personally, explaining the new partnership. Their relief was obvious. I knew you'd find a way forward, Steve told me. This gives us the best of both worlds, your expertise and Titan's infrastructure. By afternoon, Titan's stock had stabilized as news of the solution spread. By market close, I'd signed those formal partnership agreements allowing me to build Thompson Manufacturing Partners while maintaining preferred relationships with Titan. Jason's departure became official 3 days later. The board appointed Peterson as permanent CEO, with a mandate to refocus the company on client relationships supported by technical excellence, not the reverse. 1 week after being dismissed, I sat in my new office 2 blocks from Titan's headquarters. Small but professional space in a building full of engineering firms and manufacturing consultants. My phone rang. Roger Patterson. Congratulations on the partnership arrangement, he said. Creative solution. Thank you. Word travels fast in this business. He laughed. It does, when someone rewrites the rules. Are you taking on new clients? My offer still stands. I might have room in my portfolio, I replied, smiling. Let's talk next week. As I hung up, my assistant, yes, I'd already hired one, appeared at the door. Your 2 p.m. appointment is here, and this arrived for you. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a note from General Miller. Jason cleared out his office today. Thought you'd want to know. When he opened the client files you left behind, he finally understood what he'd lost. Too late for him, not for Titan. We're grateful. J.M. I smiled, tucking the note into my desk drawer. My revenge hadn't required sabotage or public humiliation. No grand gestures or scorched earth tactics. Just patience, letting Jason discover for himself that real manufacturing partnerships couldn't be reduced to spreadsheets or transferred like database entries. By trying to standardize something built on human expertise and trust, he destroyed the very thing he sought to control. That afternoon, walking to my first client meeting as founder of Thompson Manufacturing Partners, I felt something I hadn't in months: optimism. The temporary paper sign on my door would be replaced next week with something permanent representing validation of an approach that valued competence and relationships as the foundation of business success. My phone buzzed. Text from Steve Rodriguez. Board-approved expanded contract terms, dinner next week to celebrate, and another from Peterson. First week as CEO nearly done, already implementing relationship-focused strategies you recommended. Coffee soon? I smiled, putting the phone away as I prepared to meet my client. In the end, my best revenge wasn't taking Titan's clients or celebrating Jason's fall. It was proving something I'd always known. In manufacturing, like the military, relationships built on competence and trust matter more than efficiency metrics. You can measure processes, but you can't measure loyalty. And some lessons can only be learned the hard way. That's the story of how I lost my job and found my calling. Sometimes the best thing that can happen is getting pushed out of your comfort zone. It forces you to remember what really matters and what you're actually worth. Your reputation isn't built on the files you leave behind. It's built on the trust people place in your expertise and the relationships you earn through delivering what you promise, especially when no one's watching. The best revenge against someone who undervalues you isn't destroying them. It's proving they were wrong about what really matters and building something better that shows everyone the difference between managing numbers and leading people.